This journal was recovered 6 years after the first day of the zombie war, from beneath the floorboards of a country cottage north of Crewe. It was sealed inside a rusted biscuit tin and wrapped in a child-sized school cardigan. The pages were stained with damp candle wax and something dark that was never identified. The final entry was dated September 15th, exactly 1 month after the outbreak began. The journal belonged to a primary school teacher responsible for 8 children when the collapse started. It records the first days of the war, their escape from the school, and the desperate measures she took to keep them alive. Archivist Elizabeth Caldwell has read this account aloud for the History of the Zombie War archives. It has been preserved as it was found. The account begins on the first morning, while the television still showed children's programs, the phones still appeared to work, and the adults were still pretending that the world outside could be put right. It begins with breakfast club, 8 children, 1 teacher, and the first day of the end.
August 17th. Breakfast club started at 7:30 as usual. Only 8 today. Mums and dads must have heard the news about the riots in London and kept the others home. I don't blame them. The children arrived carrying lunchboxes and cardigans, despite the warmth, their parents hurrying them through the gate without stopping to chat. One father told me the roads were a nightmare, and then got back into his car before I could ask what he meant. Mr. Henderson arrived at 8 o'clock looking grey. He said the motorways were gridlocked and his phone had stopped working somewhere past Crewe. He had tried it several times while he was talking, lifting it to the ceiling as if a signal might be hiding there. Every few minutes he checked the screen again. We turned the whole TV on for the children while we unpacked the cereal boxes. Cartoon Network, Peppa Pig, normal things. The children laughed when George fell into a muddy puddle, and Jacob complained that he had already seen this episode. The television stayed bright and cheerful while the adults moved around it too quickly, checking phones, looking through the windows, and pretending not to listen to the distant shouting outside. At 8:45, the normal things stopped. Mrs. Patterson rang the bell for first assembly, but nobody came. The bell sounded 3 times, then stopped halfway through the 4th. There was a noise from outside, a crash followed by shouting, and then screaming from the car park. The children went quiet. Even the ones who had been arguing over the last bowl of cereal stopped. Mrs. Patterson ran past the hall doors. She was holding one hand against her neck. I saw blood between her fingers. She reached the office door and fell before she could get it open. The screaming stopped. I got the children back into the classroom. Register procedure. Line up, jackets off, bags on pegs. They were confused because it wasn't time yet, but they did it because that's what we do. I shut the blinds and moved them into the reading corner beside the office. It was only a few steps from the door, close enough for me to hear Mrs. Patterson moving inside, but the shelves hid most of the room from view. I wanted to investigate. I wanted to see how badly she was hurt, whether the bleeding had stopped, whether there was anything I could do. I took 1 step towards the office and then looked back at the children. They were sitting cross-legged among the cushions, their picture books open on their knees. 8 children, 8 pairs of eyes. I didn't know what was happening to Mrs. Patterson, and I didn't know whether whatever was happening could happen to them. I couldn't leave them alone, not even for a minute, so I stayed by the reading corner and listened. I gave each child a book and told them we were having an unexpected indoor activity. Mr. Henderson went to check the office and came back white-faced. He pulled the door shut behind him and turned the key. "The phones are dead," he said. "All of them. Landlines too." "What about Mrs. Patterson?" I asked. "We should help her." "She's in the office." "Then we need to get her out." "She's clawing at the door." I stared at him. "She's injured." She was injured, he said. Now she's clawing at the door. Something struck the other side of the office door. Once, then again, harder. The children looked up from their books. Mr. Henderson lowered his voice. I locked her in there because she tried to bite me. I wanted to tell him that people did not bite each other. Not really. Not unless something was terribly wrong. But his sleeve was torn at the cuff, and there were 4 red lines across his wrist. Behind us, Mrs. Patterson dragged her fingernails down the wood. He tried the reception phone in front of me. There was no ringing tone, no crackle, nothing. He pressed buttons anyway. Then he tried his mobile. The screen showed 1 bar of signal, then none. Mr. Henderson looked towards the staff room. It was only a few steps away, just beyond the office. It had a small television mounted above the kettle. He went to check it, leaving the door open so I could see him from the reading corner. I kept the children close, one hand raised to silence them as he pressed the button. The staff room television flickered once, showed the same grey screen, and went black. Then there was sound. Reports of coordinated attacks across several counties. Residents are advised to remain indoors. Do not approach anyone displaying signs of confusion, aggression, or... The broadcast cut out. When it returned, a different voice was speaking. A man this time, breathless and too close to the microphone. Do not open your doors. They may look injured. They may call out. Do not approach them. Repeat, do not approach. There was a loud bang in the background. The man stopped speaking. The program continued for another 3 seconds, filled with the sound of someone breathing, and then the television went silent. For a while, neither of us moved. The children were still quietly reading. Mrs. Patterson scraped her nails down the office door. Could we try the radio? I whispered. Mr. Henderson looked at me. We have a radio? An old one, in the janitor's cupboard, I think. He remembered it then. He had seen it during the summer fair when we were hunting for extension cables. Battery operated. Analog. We had laughed about it at the time, calling it an antique, the sort of thing that belonged in a museum or a grandparent's kitchen. It didn't seem funny anymore. I told the children we were going to find something that might make the television work again. Mr. Henderson went first, checking the corridor before opening the cupboard. I stayed close to the reading corner until he waved me over, unwilling to leave the children where I couldn't see them. The radio was buried under a tarp and 3 broken cricket bats. Dust coated the dial. Mr. Henderson carried it into the staff room, while I ushered the children to the doorway, keeping them behind me. They watched through the glass panel as he set it on the table. The last working connection to the outside world was an old-school radio. We locked the door and pulled the blinds down. The radio smelled of dust and old batteries. Mr. Henderson rubbed the dial with his sleeve before turning it on. Static. Then BBC Radio 4, the Pips, someone clearing their throat. A woman's voice, reading from a script, advised to remain in their homes. Do not attempt to travel. The armed forces have been deployed to... The broadcast dissolved into static. Mr. Henderson turned the dial. We found a local station for half a minute. A presenter was speaking so quickly that the words ran together. Multiple incidents in the town centre. Emergency services are unable to respond to all calls. Please avoid hospitals unless absolutely necessary. And if you have been bitten or... Static swallowed the rest. We found another frequency. A recorded message repeated every 20 seconds. Stay indoors, secure all doors and windows. Do not allow strangers into your home. Await further instructions. Then another voice broke through it, shouting over the recording. They're not stopping. There are too many. We need transport at the south entrance. We need... A sound like breaking glass. Silence. We sat there for an hour, retuning and finding fragments, French frequencies, German, someone in Arabic repeating al-maut, 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 which I later learned means death. An American accent saying, Continental United States has suspended. And then nothing. At 10:30, something struck the outside window. The children flinched. The radio hissed on the staff room table, and for a moment I couldn't tell whether the sound had come from outside or from the speaker. Then something struck the window again, harder. Classroom time, I said. The children looked at me. Books away, single file, quietly. Mr. Henderson switched off the radio. I gathered the children together and moved them from the staff room towards our classroom, keeping myself between them and the windows. They held hands as they had been taught, though nobody needed reminding. The office door was only a few steps away. I counted them as they passed. Ava, Jacob, Olivia, Ethan, Priya, Noah, Lily, Daniel. 8. We reached the classroom. I shut the door, locked it, and pulled the children towards the reading corner. The shelves hid them from the windows, but not from me. I needed to see every face. Only then did I look outside. There was a woman. She wore a supermarket uniform and had one shoe missing. Her mouth opened and closed, but the glass muffled whatever she was saying. She raised both hands and tapped or scraped her fingertips against the window. Behind her, 2 men crossed the playground. They were moving slowly, but they were not walking towards anywhere. One stopped beneath the climbing frame and turned his face towards our classroom. I pulled the blinds shut. Ava asked whether the woman needed help. She had almost scared me half to death, her small voice appearing next to me. I said the police were coming. I had no reason to think that was true. At 11:15, the radio gave us the first clear instruction. Emergency measures remain in effect. Do not travel. Do not attempt to reach major towns or transport hubs. Roadblocks are in place. Individuals showing violent or disorientated behaviour must not be approached. If safe to do so, isolate them from other people and contact emergency services. Mr. Henderson looked at me. Isolate them? He said. The voice continued. Medical facilities in several regions are no longer accepting patients. Reports of transmission through bites remain unconfirmed. Avoid contact with bodily fluids. Do not. The signal broke apart. For several seconds, all we could hear was static. Then a different broadcast appeared underneath it, faint and distant. Safe zones are being established outside major population centres. Further details will follow. Do not attempt to reach the safe zones until instructed. Mr. Henderson wrote the words on the back of an old staff meeting agenda. His handwriting was so neat. At noon, the school alarm began to sound. There was no power, so it could not have been the fire alarm. It was the alarm on the emergency exit, shrieking because someone was pushing against it from outside. Mr. Henderson and I stood in the corridor while the children cried in the classroom behind us. The door shook once, then again. A voice called his name. "Mr. Henderson, please, it's me." He froze. The voice came again, softer this time. "Please let me in." I didn't recognize it. Mr. Henderson did. He looked at me, and for one terrible second I thought he was going to open the door. Instead, he stepped away from it. The radio crackled from the staff room. A woman's voice was saying, "If you can hear this, remain where you are. Do not leave secure buildings. Do not..." The message cut off. Mr. Henderson stood up. "I'm going to check the perimeter," he said. "See if anyone else made it in, and I'm going to turn off the alarm." I should have stopped him. I was a teacher, and he was leaving without a hall pass, and I should have stopped him. I should have said that the perimeter could wait. I should have locked the door and made him sit down. I should have asked him why he thought he was the one who had to go. Instead, I gave him the keys. The alarm stopped, but he didn't come back. 17th of August, evening. I am writing this by torchlight. The power went out at 4:30. One moment the classroom lights were buzzing above us, and the next they were gone. The children screamed until I told them it was part of the emergency drill. I don't think any of them believed me, but they quietened down. They are asleep now on the reading corner beanbags, all 8 of them. I pushed the shelves closer together and made a little wall between them and the windows. It isn't much of a wall. Jacob woke twice asking for his mum, and I had to hold him until he cried himself out. I didn't know what else to do. I'm not supposed to pick them up anymore. Safeguarding policy. But there isn't a policy for this. I walked the corridors once the children were quiet. The school sounded different without the lights. Every creak seemed to come from the room beside me. I checked the office door. Mrs. Patterson had stopped clawing at it. I didn't open it. I stood there with my hand on the key and listened for breathing. There was none that I could hear. I went back to the radio at 5 o'clock. Static now, mostly. The batteries must be older than the children. I kept turning the dial slowly, like tuning a lesson plan, and found something at the far end. Someone crying, I think, or laughing. It was hard to tell. Then a man's voice, very calm, reading coordinates, grid references, numbers repeated twice. Safe zone, he kept saying. Proceed to designated safe zones. I wrote them down on a post-it note, pressing so hard the pen tore through the paper. I don't know where they are. Somewhere north. Too far for 8 children on foot. Too far for me alone, even if the roads are clear, even if the safe zones exist, even if the voice is still alive. The broadcast changed 3 times while I was listening. First, there was a woman telling people to stay indoors. Then a man telling people to leave the cities. Then the same woman came back and said nobody should travel unless instructed. Her voice sounded thinner the second time. I turned the volume down before the children could wake. Mr. Henderson is outside. I saw him from the window of the disabled toilet, the one with the frosted glass. I recognised his brown suit and bright red tie through the glass. I only went in there because it has the best view of the car park. The top small window had been broken at some point and replaced with clear glass. I had to stand on the toilet to see out of it. He was standing beside the fence with his head tilted, the way he used to listen when the Year 6 orchestra practiced. There were others with him. 5, 6. I couldn't count them properly in the low light, and I didn't dare shine a torch in their direction. They move strangely, not quickly, not slowly either. They stop without seeming to decide to stop. Then they start again together. Mr. Henderson lifted his face towards the building. I stepped down from the toilet and away from the window, my heart thudding in my chest. I couldn't see if he was breathing. I don't know if that matters anymore. I counted our supplies. We have the Breakfast Club cereal, 6 boxes of Rice Krispies, 2 of Weetabix, and a tub of powdered milk. The Rice Krispies have gone soft at the edges, but the children won't notice if I keep the bowls small. There are 8 lunch bags in the kitchenette, though some of the fruit is already bruising. I will check them properly in the morning. The children had oranges in their lunch bags. I confiscated them. Confiscated. As if this were chewing gum. They cried, but they were hungry, so they stopped crying when I gave them the segments. I told them it was a midnight feast, a special treat. They believed me because they're 8 years old, and why wouldn't they? I have written the names of all 8 children on the back of the register. I keep looking at the list to make sure none of them has disappeared while I wasn't watching. Ava, Jacob, Olivia, Ethan, Priya, Noah, Lily, Daniel. 8 present. The radio is still on. I can hear it through the wall. Static, static, static. Like the sea, my grandmother would have said. like the sea coming in. I'm so tired. 18th of August. I took the register this morning. 8 present. I made them say, "Here, Mrs. Hartley," in a whisper. We're practicing our whisper voices, I told them. Like mice, like secrets. They liked that. Ava said we should have whisper names. She is now called Silver, and Jacob is Thunder. I didn't argue. You don't argue when they are smiling. I checked the children while they were answering. No cuts that I could see, no blood on their sleeves. No one had been sick during the night. I have started looking at them like that, quickly and secretly, as if I am checking homework. I don't know when that became part of the register. I went back to the radio at 9 o'clock. The batteries are dying, the sound thinner and warped, like listening through water. I found the BBC again, or what used to be the BBC. A man was reading a list of cities. Quarantine effective. Quarantine failed. Containment not possible. He said London was an exclusion zone. He said Manchester was lost. He said something about Birmingham, and I turned it off because that's 40 miles from here, and that's not far enough. The children asked if the man had said Birmingham. I told them he had said bird table. Ava looked at me for a long moment. She is beginning to notice when I change words. I let them draw at the tables while I checked the doors. The fire exit in Year 6 is blocked by a minivan I don't recognise. The front gates are open. I saw 3 people near the staff entrance, moving the way Mr. Henderson moves now, slow, listening. One of them was wearing a lanyard I think I recognised from the Tesco Express. Another had no shoes. They stood close together, but none of them spoke. I counted the doors. Front entrance, office corridor, east fire exit, Year 6 fire exit, kitchen delivery door. The kitchen door has a small window in it, which means it is not much use if anyone gets close. I wrote the list on the back of a spelling sheet and put it in my pocket. The water still runs, just. I filled every water bottle I could find and every paint washing pot. I filled the kettle, the mop bucket, and the plastic tub we use for soaking paintbrushes. The water came out clear but weak, and the pipes knocked after each tap was closed. I kept expecting the flow to stop while I was filling something. We had a lesson about hydration. I made them chant, "Water is life, water is life." They thought it was a game. I gave each of them a small cup and told them we were practicing careful drinking. Jacob swallowed his in one go and looked at me for more. Scientists measure everything, I told him. He put the empty cup down with both hands. I checked the radio again at lunch. A different voice now, younger, female. She was crying while she read the coordinates. "If anyone can hear this," she said. "If anyone can hear this, please." Then a sound like a door breaking, followed by several people shouting at once. The broadcast continued for a few seconds after her voice stopped. Someone was breathing into the microphone, then static. I turned the dial for an hour. Nothing but the sound of the world ending, one frequency at a time. 19th of August. The tap coughed. That's the only word for it. A wet, bronchial sound from the pipes. And then what came out was barely a trickle. I held the water jug under it for 20 minutes and filled maybe an inch. The children were brushing their teeth at the other sink, using too much paste because they don't understand yet that the paste might outlast the water. I didn't stop them. What am I going to teach them instead? Rationing, hydrology. I sent them to the hall with a skipping rope I found in the PE cupboard. Indoor break, I called it, though my voice sounded like someone else, and I did what I've been avoiding. I went through the staff room properly. Before I started, I made them promise not to leave the hall. I told them it was a quiet challenge. If they stayed inside the taped square near the stage, they could earn extra story time. I put Noah in charge of reminding everyone. He took the job seriously and told Ethan off twice. Mr. Henderson's mug was still on the windowsill. World's best teacher, a joke gift from last Christmas. I moved it without looking inside. The kettle was half full of cold water. I poured it into the jug through my cardigan sleeve to filter out the lime scale. 2 tea bags in the tin. A jar of Nescafe with the foil seal still on. Sugar in a Tupperware. I found a packet of digestives in Mrs. Drummond's locker. She was always dieting, always being naughty with a biscuit at break, and I ate one standing there because I hadn't eaten since Friday and my hands were shaking too badly to wait. It tasted of nothing. It tasted of ash and cardboard. I checked the cupboards, the drawers, and the pockets of the coats hanging behind the door. 2 mints, a packet of chewing gum, 3 sachets of tomato sauce. Nothing that could be called a meal. No proper cafeteria here. The building's too small, always has been. But the state-packed lunches come in on Tuesdays and Fridays, stacked in the kitchenette fridge in blue plastic crates. Free school meals. I used to tick the boxes on the spreadsheet. FSM eligible, dietary requirements, allergies, Jacob, nut-free, Olivia, halal. I remember the codes better than I remember my own sister's birthday. I found 12 lunch bags still in the fridge. Cheese sandwiches, the cheap kind where the cheese is a pale orange square. Apples starting to bruise. Cartons of long life milk. Those little tubes of yogurt that the children can't open without biting the corner. I counted them on the table, like lesson resources. 12 lunches, 8 children. That maths I can do. That maths is clean. When I came back to the hall, Jacob was crying. "I want my mummy," he kept saying, loud, too loud, and the others were starting to catch it. The way panic spreads in a classroom, one child, and then the whole row. I knelt down, and I looked him in the eyes, and I told him the kindest lie I have ever told. "Your mummy called," I said. "Last night. She spoke to me on the phone. She said she's safe. She's with the other mummies and daddies, and she said you have to be brave for just a little while longer. She said she's proud of you for being so grown up." He stopped crying. He sniffed and he asked, "Did she say when she's coming?" "Soon," I said. "When it's safe. They're all waiting in a special place, keeping quiet and safe, and when the noisy people go away, they'll come and get you." I said the same thing 7 more times, to 7 more children. I invented details. Olivia's mum sent a hug. Noah's dad said to practice his reading. Lily's parents were making her favourite tea for when she got home. They believed me because I'm their teacher, and teachers don't lie. That's what they know. That's what I've taught them. The lie sits in my stomach like the digestive biscuit. Heavy, indigestible. I will have to remember which lies I told to which child. I will have to keep them consistent. I am maintaining a fiction now, a curriculum of falsehood, and I am suddenly so tired I can barely stand. The water trickled. I thought about my plan, which isn't a plan at all. It's just a list of things that haven't run out yet. Water, food, the batteries in the torch, the batteries in the radio, which I keep turning on even though I know what I'll hear. 8 children, 1 of me. The building with its doors that lock from the inside and windows that open wide enough to climb through. My plan is keep them alive until someone comes. My fear is no one is coming. August 20th. I killed a man today. That is a very strange thing to write down. I can't tell the children, but I have to write it down. He was in the East Corridor, one of the parents, I think. though his face strange, grey and too full somehow, like bread dough left to rise. I had thought for a single moment he was someone who had come to help me, but that thought died as soon as I got a good look at him. His clothes were torn at the shoulder, and there was something dark beneath his fingernails. He'd got in through the fire door. I must not have clicked the latch properly. I must have been tired. I am always tired. He was scratching at the door of the music room where I'd sent the children to practice their silent instruments. A stupid game. A game I invented so I could go to the toilet in peace. I heard the scratching first, a steady drag of nails against the wood, followed by a soft bump whenever he put his weight against the door. I thought one of the children had gone back for something. I called out, "Who is it?" And he answered with a sound that wasn't a word. I took the fire extinguisher from the bracket by the art display. It was heavier than I expected. My hands were wet, though I don't remember washing them. He turned, and I swung. The sound was like a pumpkin, like the time I dropped the Halloween decoration in the staff room and everyone laughed. Nobody laughed today. He fell against the display board and pulled half of it down with him. A painted solar system came loose from the wall and landed beside his head. I stopped for a second. Then he moved. I had to keep swinging because he kept moving. Teachers persevere. We don't give up on a task until it's finished. Afterwards, I stood there holding the extinguisher and listening to the children playing their silent instruments in the music room. Their fingers were moving over invisible keys and strings. Ethan was conducting. I could hear the little squeak of his shoes on the floor. They had headphones on, thank God, those great but stupidly expensive noise-cancelling ones. I washed my hands in the staff toilet. The water ran cold over them and turned pink, then pale, then clear. I watched it disappear down the plug hole. I wanted to keep washing until the skin came off. I dragged him behind the storage cupboard and pulled the fire door shut. I couldn't move him far. He was heavier than a person should be, or I was weaker than I used to be. I cleaned the corridor before the children came out. Not properly. I used paper towels, disinfectant, and the blue mop bucket. There was a dark mark beneath the skirting board that I couldn't reach. I covered it with a sheet of backing paper from the art cupboard. I told the children the corridor was being decorated and we had to use the other way. They held hands in a crocodile line like always. Olivia asked why I had red paint on my shoes. I said I'd been doing art. I was not doing art. At lunchtime, Jacob asked about his dad. I said his dad was safe. I said all their parents were safe. I said they were waiting somewhere quiet and warm, and that they knew I was looking after them. I didn't know if any of it was true. After they were asleep, I went back to the staff room and finished the inventory. I had to make a list because lists are useful. Lists are how you stop things becoming bigger than they are. 3 more digestives in another locker, a tin of celebrations someone was saving, a family-size bag of crisps, salt and vinegar already opened, 2 sachets of instant soup, a packet of mints. I ate the crumbs straight from the bag standing at the window, watching the car park. Mr. Henderson was there again, or still there, or someone who used to be him. They don't seem to sleep. They don't seem to do anything but stand and listen and wait for the door to open. I counted the packed lunches again. 10 now. We had 2 for tea. I called it a picnic. The children sat on the classroom floor and I gave each of them half a sandwich and a few crisps. They ate the cheese sandwiches cold and I pretended it was an adventure. Ava said her mummy lets her have crisps in her lunchbox. I promised her crisps tomorrow. I don't know if I should be making promises. I don't know if promises are cruelty now. The tap ran for 30 seconds this morning. Just a thin stream, brown for the first 10 seconds, then clear, then nothing. I have 6 inches of water in the jug. I have the kettle. I have the paint washing pots. I keep thinking about the toilet cisterns. Is that water? Can you drink that? I used to know things. I used to know the phonics scheme and the safeguarding policy and the exact date of the Easter holidays. Now I stand in the toilets and stare at the cistern lid and wonder if I have the strength to pry it off. I also keep thinking about the fire extinguisher. It is still in the corridor. I left it beside the storage cupboard because I couldn't carry it back to its bracket. Tomorrow I will have to move it. Tomorrow I will have to decide what to do with the body. Tomorrow I will have to teach the children maths. 21st of August. Today I taught them about explorers. We sat in the classroom with the blinds down, and I told them about Ernest Shackleton, how he kept his men alive in Antarctica by making them sing and play games and pretend everything was normal. I didn't say the part about how some of them died anyway. I didn't say the part about how he had to shoot the dogs. I drew a map of Antarctica on the whiteboard. The blue pen was running dry, so the sea looked more grey than blue. I drew the ice in thick, uneven lines and marked the place where Shackleton's ship was crushed. The children liked that part. They asked how cold it was, whether penguins could bite, and if explorers were allowed to be frightened. Yes, I said, being frightened is part of exploring. Ava asked if we were explorers now. I said yes. I said we were discovering a new country called Surviving School. Jacob asked if there would be maths in Surviving School. There would always be maths, I said. 8 explorers, 10 lunches, 1 jug of water. That maths. I didn't tell them that part. The children don't need to know that our survival is measured in the food we have left. I let them drink half a cup each, half a cup. I used the measuring cups from the cooking trolley. They looked at me like I was being mean, and I smiled and said, "Hydration scientists only drink small amounts to make the water last longer." Another lie. Another curriculum I've invented to explain why the world is shrinking. Jacob held his cup in both hands and stared at the bottom after he had finished. "Can I have more science water?" he asked. "Not until lunchtime," I said. "Scientists follow the instructions." He nodded, because he still believes instructions are made by people who know what they are doing. After the lesson, I gave them jobs. Ava and Priya sorted the pencils. Ethan and Daniel counted blankets. Olivia helped me collect every clean container from the classrooms. Noah wrote labels on them in his best handwriting: drinking, washing, emergency. Lily put the lids beside each container so we wouldn't lose them. I told them it was preparation for an expedition. It was the first time I had used the word emergency in front of them. They didn't ask what it meant. I checked the radio at noon. Dead batteries. I found more in the remote for the hall projector. AA, slightly corroded, but they worked. The static sounded different with fresh power. Louder. Or maybe the world is just emptier. I caught a fragment of something military, fallback positions, civilian non-essential, and then a voice, clear as anything, a man's voice saying, "If you're hearing this, stay where you are. Do not attempt to reach the safe zones. The safe zones are..." Then nothing. Just static. Just the sea coming in. I turned it off. I didn't want to hear what the safe zones are. The trickle from the tap didn't come at all today. I turned it several times, as if the water might be hiding behind the handle. Nothing. Not even the coughing sound from yesterday. I filled the jug from the toilet cistern in the disabled toilet, the one with the newer plumbing. It's cleaner, newer plumbing, I told myself, as if that matters. I carried it to the science cupboard and boiled it in a large pot we used for cooking classes over a Bunsen burner. The flame wavered blue beneath the metal. The water tasted of rubber tubing and fear. The children drank it because they were thirsty, and because I told them it was special science water. Noah said it tasted like swimming pool. I told him that meant it was properly purified. Mrs. Hartley, Year 4, Specialism, Key Stage 2. Literacy, additional responsibilities, keeping 8 children alive with rubber tubing and boiled toilet water. I searched the cupboards after dinner and found half a box of chalk, 2 candles from the religious education cupboard, and a packet of seeds in the gardening drawer. Lettuce, carrots, and something labelled only mixed flowers. I put the seeds in my pocket. I don't know when I started collecting things that might keep us alive. Register tomorrow. 8 names. I say them to myself before sleep like a prayer. Ava, Jacob, Olivia, Ethan, Priya, Noah, Lily, Daniel. 8 present. 22nd of August. No water, none. I turned the tap at 6 o'clock and it sighed at me, a long, empty exhalation, and then nothing. I kept turning it left and right, like a child who doesn't understand that the toy is broken. The toilet cisterns are empty. The paint pots are dry. We have half a jug of boiled cistern water left, and I am measuring it in mouthfuls. I stood at the window this morning and looked at the minivan properly for the first time. It's a white Ford Transit, the kind parents use for big families. It's wedged against the fire exit with its nose against the brickwork, driver's door hanging open, abandoned in a hurry. I can see a child's car seat in the back through binoculars I took from the science cupboard. There's a spiderweb crack in the windscreen. I keep thinking about the keys. Then I thought about my cottage. I haven't thought about home in 5 days. It exists in a different country, a country called Before. But it's real. It's 20 minutes north on the back lanes, B roads, single track, hedgerows too tight for convoys. The wall around the garden is brick, 6 feet, crumbling in places, but solid. The gate has a bolt and a padlock. The water butts are full from unexpected August rain, 200 litres at least, and the stream at the bottom of the lane never runs dry. My neighbours are half a mile away. My neighbours might be dead. It's a little country cottage, 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, and a living room with a wood burner, a larder, a garden with runner beans and tomatoes that I left on the vine when I came to work on Friday morning. Friday morning, when I packed a sandwich and kissed my cat and drove to school through traffic that was already too loud, too frantic. I went to the fire exit and touched the push bar. On the other side, 3 feet away, is the van. On the other side of the van is the car park. On the other side of the car park is the lane. On the other side of the lane is the road to my cottage, to water, to walls, to a door that doesn't have Mr. Henderson standing outside it. I checked the van at noon. The keys were in the sun visor. The tank is half full. The engine turns over. I am going to steal a dead person's car and abduct 8 children and drive them to my house. I am going to do this tomorrow. I keep telling myself it's a plan. It feels like a symptom. 22nd of August, afternoon. I spent this morning packing. The children helped. I told them we were going on a special trip to a holiday cottage, like Centre Parks, I said, though I've never been, and that their mummies and daddies would meet us there. The lie is getting easier. That's what frightens me. Ava asked if there would be swimming. I said maybe. Jacob asked if his mum was already there. I said yes, she's getting the rooms ready. I said it with a smile. My face hurts from smiling. We loaded everything into the corridor by the fire exit. The remaining packed lunches, 6 now. 4 boxes of cereal, though the Rice Krispies are mostly dust. The first aid kit from the office, 2 fire extinguishers, the radio with its borrowed batteries, every water bottle and paint pot. I took the beanbags from the reading corner and thought about leaving them. They're bulky, they're stupid, they're stained with juice from 3 years of story time. But Noah asked if he could bring his, and I said yes. I said yes to everything. They can bring the skipping rope. They can bring the coloured pencils. They can bring the class hamster if it makes them feel like this is an adventure and not an evacuation. I found a road atlas in the geography cupboard. I traced the route with my finger. School, left at the crossroads, past the church, follow the lane until the oak tree, then right. 20 minutes in a vehicle, 20 minutes of engine noise, 20 minutes of being visible. I covered the rear windows of the van with paper from the art supplies. Decorations, I told the children, so the sun doesn't get in your eyes. The truth is, I don't want them to see what's outside when we pass it. I don't want them to see the Tesco Express with the broken windows. I don't want them to see the things that used to be people. I checked the van again at dusk. The tank is half full. The tyres look fine. The child seat in the back is stained brown, and I will have to move it or cover it or pretend not to see it. There is room for 8 children and 1 adult. There is room for hope, if hope is something that folds flat. I made them practice getting into it quietly. We lined up beside the fire exit, and I explained that we were pretending to be spies. No talking, no drop pencils, no pushing. We practiced moving quietly in the safety of the school. I had set up chairs in the same arrangement at the seats in the van. They loved it. Noah dropped his pencil case on the first attempt, and everyone giggled until I put my finger to my lips. Again, I said. The second time was quieter. The third time, Jacob asked whether his mum would be waiting at the other end. Yes, I said. He smiled and climbed in my fake van. I gave them each half a cup of water for bed. They are asleep now, arranged on the corridor carpet, with their coats as pillows. I am sitting with my back against the fire exit push bar, feeling the metal cold through my cardigan. On the other side of this door is our escape. On the other side of this door is everything that might kill us. I have not driven a van since my university summer job. I have not killed anyone since Monday. I am hoping tomorrow brings only one of those things. The register is in my coat pocket. The road atlas is beside my knee. The keys are in my hand. Tomorrow, I have to get 8 children through one door. 23rd of August. Dawn. Grey light through the high windows. I did the register in a whisper, and they answered with their whisper names: Silver, Thunder, Pearl, Fox, River, Stone, Star, Leaf. They think it's still a game. They stood in a crocodile line with their backpacks, the ones they brought for Friday spelling tests, and held hands while they looked at me as if I knew what I was doing. I don't know what I'm doing. I moved the fire exit bar. The alarm didn't sound. I half expected it would, even after the power being out for days. The door opened outwards with a scrape against the van's bumper. The air outside smelled of rot and petrol. The car park was grey with dew. 20 yards away, by the staff entrance, 4 of them stood with their heads tilted, listening. 1 wore a suit. 1 wore pyjamas. Mr. Henderson was near the gate, facing away, his shoulders moving in a way that suggested breathing but wasn't. "Climb in," I whispered. "Quickly now, like we practiced." Ava went first, then Priya. The others followed, too loud and too slowly. Noah dropped his pencil case. It clattered on the tarmac. I saw Mr. Henderson's head turn. I saw all of their heads turn. "Get in, get in, get in!" I lifted Lily in. She's the smallest. Ethan scrambled after her. Jacob froze in the doorway of the van, staring at the child seat with the brown stain. "It's okay," I lied. "It's just mud. Get in, Thunder." He got in. I slammed the rear door. Too loud, too loud. Then I ran around to the driver's side. My hands were shaking so badly that I dropped the keys twice. Someone was crying in the back. In the car park, they were moving now, that terrible marionette lurch. Faster than they looked. The engine caught on the 3rd try. I reversed hard. The bumper scraped free from the brick with a scream of metal. Something struck the rear doors. The children screamed. I didn't look in the mirrors. I didn't look at Mr. Henderson thumping against the side window as I swung the wheel. I looked at the gate, the open gate, and the lane beyond. "Seatbelts!" I shouted. Because teachers shout about seatbelts. Because if I shout about seatbelts, then this is just a school trip. "Everyone put your seatbelts on!" The van lurched forward. The gate clipped the passenger side mirror, and it snapped inward with a crack. Priya began to cry. I told her it was only a wing mirror, as though that meant anything to her. I drove through the gate and didn't look back. I cheered, trying to lighten their spirits. The children cheered. They cheered because we were going on holiday, their parents were waiting, and the world was still a place where teachers took children on trips. I was driving north with 8 children, a few packed lunches, and a tank half full of petrol. The road ahead was empty. The rearview mirror was full of things I wouldn't explain to them. We passed the row of shops without stopping. The supermarket windows were broken, and tins and packets covered the pavement. A person lay beneath the bus shelter. I kept my eyes on the road. "Was he sleeping?" Lily asked. "Yes," I said. The road narrowed after the church. A lorry had been abandoned across the bend, its cab angled into the hedge. I slowed and edged the van through the gap between the lorry and the stone wall. Branches scraped along the side. Something moved in the hedge. I locked the doors before I started again. No one asked why. The children began singing Old MacDonald. They had forgotten most of the words, so they filled the gaps with animals they invented: a dragon, a shark, a unicorn. Their voices rose and fell behind me, cheerful and thin. At the oak tree, I took the turning onto the lane. The hedges closed around us. The branches tapped the roof like fingernails. The sat-nav had been dead since the school. I followed the road by memory, one hand on the wheel, and the other gripping the edge of the atlas like I would forget the way to my own home. Left at the church. Right at the oak. Past the field with the broken gate. The lane was empty. That frightened me more than seeing people. Then I saw the cottage. The slate roof was visible above the hedge. The chimney stood straight. The brick wall was dark ivy, exactly where I remembered it. The oak gate was shut across the drive. I slowed and sounded the horn once. The children cheered again. I stopped 10 yards from the gate and looked at the lane behind us. Nothing moved between the hedges. Nothing stood at the bend. "Stay inside," I said. I got out with the fire extinguisher in one hand and the gate keys in the other. The children watched me through the paper-covered windows. The gate bolt was stiff. My fingers slipped twice. Behind me, something dragged its hands down the side of the van. I pulled the bolt free. The gate opened just wide enough. I ran back to the driver's seat, started the engine, and drove through. The wall closed around us on both sides. I jumped out again and slammed the gate shut behind us. Then I pushed the bolt home. For the first time since Friday, nothing was between us and the world, except a wall, a gate, and a piece of rusted iron. 23rd of August, evening. We made it. I suppose you know that from my account of the entry into the van, but I wrote the first part within the first hour of arriving, and there was too much to do, so I'm going to continue it now. I'm writing this by candlelight in my own kitchen, at my own table, with my own cat purring on the beanbag in the corner like the world hasn't ended. The drive was... I saw things. I don't want to write them down. The words would make them real in a way that driving past them at 40 miles an hour didn't. There was a school bus. There was a man standing in a field who raised his hand to wave, and I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. When I looked in the mirror, He was running after us. Running in that way that they do. Running too fast. I took the back lanes. I drove by memory. Left at the church where I used to buy eggs from the honesty box. Past the pub where the sign still swung, the Green Man, though the windows were dark. Right at the oak tree, the big one with the split trunk where I used to walk on Sundays with a book and a thermos. I saw the cottage from 200 yards away. The chimney, the slate roof, the wall. The wall is 6 feet of crumbling brick covered in ivy. I've been meaning to cut back for 3 summers. The gate is oak, iron-bound, with a bolt that slides heavy and true. I stopped the van 20 yards short and looked at it, really looked at it, and thought, too low. They can reach 6 feet. I breathed. The children were still singing. They'd moved onto horses. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. I didn't look at the lane. I walked around the van and opened the back doors. 8 children climbed out into my garden, into my life, into the place where I used to drink wine on Friday evenings and complain about marking. Before I let them run, I checked the garden. The shed was empty, apart from bags of compost, seed trays, and the tools I used every weekend. The greenhouse was warm and crowded with tomato plants, herbs, and trays of seedlings for winter crops. I checked beneath the windows, behind the water butts, and along the wall. Everything looked as I had left it. That felt like a miracle. No one was there. I told the children they could explore, but they had to stay where I could see them, and they were not to go near the gate. They treated this as the best holiday rule anyone had ever invented. The cat was in the window. Marmalade, fat and orange, and utterly unconcerned, watching us with that slow blink that means everything is fine in cat language. The children saw him and shrieked, actual shrieks, happy shrieks, and suddenly they were children again, not refugees, running to the back door with their hands outstretched for fur. He'd been alone for 8 days. I'd left enough dry food for a weekend. I had barely thought about my plans for a weekend getaway. I wondered if my friend had checked on him like we had agreed. I discovered how he'd survived. He'd knocked the bag of food off the counter and torn it open, and his water was one of those with a tank at the back, filtered and now mostly empty. There was kibble in the corners of the kitchen, and he was thinner but alive and winding between their legs while they laughed. I stood in the doorway and tried to remember how to cry. I fed them from the garden. It seemed important to use what was already here before I touched the tins. Tomatoes, small, splitting, overripe, runner beans, and the last of the lettuce that had gone to seed. I found a cucumber hiding under the leaves, with quite a few more a few days from ripe. I cut everything raw and put it on plates and called it a harvest supper. They ate it because they were hungry and because I told them it was special. They ate 9 tomatoes. 9. I counted the plants afterwards, and there are 47 green ones left, hard as marbles. I don't know when they'll ripen. I don't know if we'll be here. The children wanted to sleep in the garden. I told them it was too cold, so we made a den in the living room instead. I dragged in the beanbags, the blankets, and the cushions from the van. They arranged themselves beneath the window and argued over who got to sleep beside Marmalade. I checked every lock before dark. Front door, back door, kitchen window, bathroom window, the little window above the sink. I pushed a chair beneath the back door handle and put the fire extinguisher beside the stairs. The cottage felt smaller once I had finished. While they ate with their fingers in the garden, I couldn't find enough forks. I have 3 forks. Who lives with 3 forks? I checked my stock. The larder is narrow, floor to ceiling, the kind of space a cottage kitchen hides behind a panelled door. I found 12 jars of pickled beetroot, the ones I put up in September, 8 jars of green beans in brine, 6 jars of plum chutney from the tree that overhangs the lane, 4 jars of blackberry jam, 2 of apple jelly, a sack of flour from the mill shop, 20 kilos bought in July because it was half price when bought in bulk, rice, a 5-kilo bag, barely touched, pasta, 6 bags, the Tesco value kind, 45p when you buy 10, tinned tomatoes, a whole shelf, bought by the case when they were on offer, tinned beans, chickpeas, lentils. I stopped counting at 20. There were dried peas, pearl barley, couscous, oats, and 2 bags of dried milk powder. I had bought the oats in a 10-kilo sack because the smaller bags cost nearly twice as much per kilo. The receipt was still tucked beneath the lid. I used to keep receipts for everything, circling the special offers in red and comparing them with the prices at the other shops. Teacher's salary. Pennies stretched until they squeaked. Soup, 12 tins, cream of mushroom and chicken, and the tomato that Jacob likes. Tuna, 8 tins, sardines. Corned beef, 3 tins for emergencies. There were tins of peaches, pineapple, custard, and rice pudding, all bought in bulk for winter. I found jars of peanut butter, honey, marmalade, and enough instant gravy to make almost anything taste like a meal. Tea, 2 full tins, coffee, the big jar, the horrible instant, but lots of it. Sugar, 5 kilos in a Tupperware with a blue lid. Salt, a catering bag. Oil, 3 bottles of sunflower oil, bought on clearance. There were candles in a box beneath the sink. Toilet paper stacked in the airing cupboard. Washing powder, soap, toothpaste, bin bags, matches, and enough batteries to keep the torches going for a while. I had bought most of it during supermarket offers, 1 pack at a time, because buying the larger size was cheaper, and because I hated running out of things. The wine, yes, still 4 bottles. At the back, the things I forgot. A Christmas pudding from 2 years ago, a tin of shortbread, a jar of stem ginger I was saving for something special. I stood in the larder and counted it all twice. Then I did the maths. 8 children, 1 adult. Calories per day. Water from the butts, 200 litres, maybe 250 if it rains. Days until rain. Weeks until I had enough, I realised. Not forever. Not even close to forever. But weeks, maybe months if we're careful. If we ration, if we supplement with the garden. I buy in bulk because a teacher's salary doesn't stretch. Because planning ahead is cheaper. Because my mother taught me to put things by, and I listened. I listened, and it might just have saved us. The panic didn't go away. Having enough food just changed its shape. Now I had something to lose. Now I had 8 children and a cat and a wall that might not be high enough, and a lane that might bring someone who wants what I have. The children are asleep in the next room. Marmalade is curled against Lily's feet. I can hear the occasional whisper, followed by a sleepy giggle. For tonight, they believe we are safe. For tonight, I am going to let them. 24th of August. I found blackberries today, a little early for them, but they were ripe with the promise of many more to come. The lane is overgrown with them, brambles arching over the tarmac like a tunnel, and the fruit is ripe, falling off the stems into my palms with the slightest pull. I took the children out after breakfast, a nature walk, I called it, for science, and we filled 3 carrier bags. They were stained purple to the elbows, faces sticky, Ava complaining that the thorns had torn her jumper, and I said I would fix it later. I will not fix it later. I don't know how to fix things. I teach literacy. We made jam in the afternoon. Real jam, with sugar from the catering bag and lemons from the tree I thought was ornamental until I looked properly at my own garden. I used my mother's recipe, written on a card in the back of the kitchen drawer, stained with decades of summer. The children took turns stirring. I told them their mummies made jam like this, that everyone would make jam together when they came. The lie felt warm. The lie felt like the steam from the pan. We got 7 jars. 7. They line the kitchen windowsill now, dark and gleaming, and I look at them and think, that's a week. That's a week of something sweet. That's a week before I have to tell them there isn't any more. I spent the evening with my plant books. The cottage came with a shelf of them. Previous owner, some woman who lived here alone for 40 years, who pressed flowers and knew the names of weeds. I found her annotations in the margins. Edible, good in soup. Do not confuse with, I learned, nettles. Young leaves, boiled, are spinach. Dandelions are edible too, though the children made faces when I told them they were going to eat weeds. Sorrel grows beside the stream and tastes like lemon. Chickweed can go into a salad. The book says rose hips are good for syrup if you remove the seeds, and that hawthorn berries can be made into jelly. There are warnings beside almost every page. Do not confuse with foxglove. Do not eat raw. Do not use if bitter. The previous owner had underlined those parts twice. I wonder if she ever imagined someone would need the information this badly. Tomorrow I am going to take the children to the edge of the garden and show them what we can gather. I will call it nature study. I will teach them which leaves are safe and which ones are not. I will make them repeat the names back to me until they remember them. They are learning the difference between a nettle and a foxglove. I am learning the difference between feeding them and keeping them alive. At bedtime, Jacob asked when his mummy would come and help us pick blackberries. I told him she would be here soon. I told him she would be proud of the jars we made. He asked if she could have the first taste. I said yes. I put 1 jar aside for her. 28th of August. The days I didn't write. I was busy. I was surviving. I was learning to be someone else. We have a routine now. I wake at dawn before the children, and I walk the perimeter with a kitchen knife in my belt. The wall is holding, the gate is holding. I check the bolt, then check it again. I look for footprints in the soft earth beside the path, and count the marks left by foxes, birds, and things I can't identify. The lane is empty, always empty. I tell myself that means we're safe. I tell myself that means we're forgotten. I don't know which is worse. I check the greenhouse next. The tomatoes need tying up. The beans need picking. The lettuce has started to bolt, so I pull the flowers off and tell myself it will last another few days. I fill the watering cans from the butt and use only what each plant needs. The children have begun watching me do it. They know not to spill. Breakfast is porridge. I bought oats in bulk. I remember carrying the sack to the car and thinking I was ridiculous. Now I think I should have bought more. I make the porridge thin and watery, but I add a spoon of blackberry jam and they eat it. They lick their bowls. They ask for seconds and I say, "Explorers only eat what they need." And they accept this because I am their teacher, and teachers know things. I keep the jam jar beside the cooker and measure it with the same spoon every morning. 1 spoon per bowl, no more. Jacob asked if he could have 2 because he had worked hard in the garden. I said no. He looked at me as if I had broken a promise, and I explained that we needed to make the food last and to keep things fair. After breakfast, lessons. I turned the garden into a classroom. Weeds are wild vegetables. The compost heap is soil science. The water butts are resource management. I don't say that last one aloud. They dig, plant and harvest with their small hands. Ava is good at spotting runner beans beneath the leaves. Ethan pulls up carrots too early. Priya has started keeping count of the tomatoes. I teach them the names of things. Plantago major, Urtica dioica, sorrel, chickweed, dandelion. They don't know I'm teaching them famine food. They don't know I'm preparing them for when the oats run out. I make them wash their hands before every meal. The water comes from a bowl now, not the tap. 1 bowl for all 8 children. I pour it over their fingers in turn, then use the grey water on the plants. I tell them this is what explorers do. The phrase sounds ridiculous, but they repeat it anyway. Lunch is whatever we have. Today, tinned beans with nettles stirred through, served on toast from the last of the sliced bread. I tell them it's special food. They believe me because they are 8 and I am 37, and the gap between those ages has never felt so vast. Daniel asked why special cheese had black spots. I told him it was a mature variety. He nodded and ate around them. After lunch, I made them help me hang washing on the line. There was only 1 load, mostly socks and underwear, but they treated it like a race. I caught myself telling them to be careful with the pegs, because they might be needed again. Everything might be needed again. Afternoon, quiet time. They draw, they read the books I brought from the school. The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, Kenzuki's Kingdom, and The Secret Garden. Lily has read the last one twice. She says she likes that the children find a hidden place and make it grow. I don't tell her that I like it for the same reason. I sit by the window with the radio, turning the dial and finding nothing. Static. Static. Sometimes a fragment, a voice, a language I don't know. Once I heard a child singing somewhere far away. It might have been a broadcast. It might have been interference. I turned it off before the others heard. I don't want them to know I'm listening for rescue and hearing only ghosts. At 3 o'clock, something moved along the far side of the wall. I saw the ivy shake. Then a hand appeared between the leaves and disappeared again. I stood up so quickly that the chair almost fell backwards. Thankfully, it didn't. The children stopped drawing. "What is it?" Ava asked. "Nothing," I said. "A bird." I took the kitchen knife from the drawer and walked outside. There was nothing beside the wall, only flattened grass and a smear of mud on the bricks, roughly at shoulder height. It had moved further down the lane. I didn't tell the children. Dinner is early. Dark comes sooner now, August ending, and we eat by candlelight because I am saving the batteries for the torch, for emergencies, for the night when the gate isn't enough. Tonight, tinned soup, thinned with water from the butt, served with a slice of cheese each from the block in the fridge that won't last forever. I am cutting it thinner and thinner, and I know it won't last forever, but maybe just a little bit longer. The children sleep in the living room now, a nest of blankets and cushions, a slumber party that never ends. They brush their teeth with boiled water and a smear of paste, and they fall asleep quickly, exhausted from the garden, from the pretending, from the work of being children in a place that has no use for children. Marmalade sleeps at the edge of the blankets. He lifts his head whenever the wind moves against the wall. I sit up. I write. I listen to him patrol the kitchen, his small feet on the tiles, his certainty that the world is still a place where cats are fed and doors are closed and everything is fine. I have not seen another person in 4 days. I tell myself this is good. I tell myself this is bad. I tell myself nothing at all and watch the lane until my eyes burn. At midnight, the children began whispering in their sleep. One of them said, "Mummy," and another answered, "She's coming." I didn't correct them. I sat beside the window until morning and kept one hand on the knife. 31st of August. I took them to the stream today. It was reckless. It was necessary. The water butts are half empty. We wash in basins now, reuse, ration. I pour the grey water over the vegetables and save the cleanest water for drinking. The children complain about being dirty. I tell them explorers don't worry about mud. I needed to see if the stream was still running, if it was clear, and if it was safe. We left after breakfast. I locked the cottage twice, then stood with my hand on the gate bolt while I counted the children. Silver, thunder, pearl, fox, river, stone, star, leaf. They carried empty bottles and one jerry can each, though the cans were almost too heavy for them. I carried the other two and the kitchen knife. The path to the stream was overgrown. Brambles caught at their sleeves and nettles brushed their knees. I kept telling them to stay together, but they kept spreading out, calling to one another through the trees. "Quiet voices," I said. They lowered their voices for nearly a minute. Then Noah found a frog. The shouting began again. The stream runs clear and cold over stones I used to skim as a girl, when my grandmother brought me here in summers that smelled of hay. The water was so cold it made my fingers ache. I filled 2 jerry cans while the children paddled, screaming at the cold, and I let them because they are children. Children need to scream sometimes. They need to be loud. They need to not know that sound carries. I kept looking at the trees. There were no footprints in the mud except ours, no movement on the far bank, no voices, just the water moving over the stones and the children splashing in the shallows. For 10 minutes, it almost felt like before. Then I saw the smoke. Upstream, half a mile away, a cottage stood between the trees. Smoke came from its chimney. Real smoke, grey and active. Someone was burning wood, or coal, or furniture. The smoke rose straight into the still air before spreading across the valley. Someone else is alive. I watched the chimney for 10 minutes. I didn't tell the children. I didn't wave. I packed the jerry cans and tightened the lids until my fingers hurt. "Time to go, explorers," I said. Ava asked whether we could stay longer. I said the lesson was finished. We walked back through the bramble tunnel with our wet feet and our bottles knocking against our legs. I kept the children in front of me and looked back every few steps. I didn't see anyone following us. That doesn't mean no one was. When we reached the gate, I counted them again before I opened it. All 8, muddy knees, wet socks, purple scratches from the brambles, all 8. I let them play in the garden while I boiled the water. They made a pretend campsite beneath the apple tree and used a blanket as a tent. I heard them telling one another that their parents were waiting inside. I didn't correct them. I should go to the cottage upstream. I should take the children and introduce myself. I should share resources, form a community, find out whether there are other survivors nearby. That's what we do. That's what humans do. But I think about the minivan, the child seat with the stain, the way Mr. Henderson stood against the glass. I think about the man in the field who waved and then ran after us. I have enough for 8. I don't have enough for more. What if they want what I have? What if they are hungry? What if they have children of their own? What if they are healthy and frightened and decent? What if they are not? I keep finding reasons not to go. The truth is simpler. I am afraid. I am not a good person anymore. I am a person who keeps 8 children alive. The Venn diagram of those things does not overlap as much as I thought it would. Tonight we had a feast. I opened a tin of corned beef and fried it with potatoes from the garden, small but real. I added onions and the last of the runner beans. The smell filled the kitchen and made all 8 children gather around the cooker before I called them. We ate like it was Christmas. The children sang Old MacDonald again, all the way through, every verse they could invent. Fox, badger, unicorn. They are still inventing things. They still believe in things. After they slept, I went to the larder and counted again. I have enough, I think, for 4 months if we're careful. 3 if we're hungry, The garden will give more: beans, squash, the late tomatoes. I know now what I can forage, what I can preserve, how to make summer last through winter in glass jars. I have begun making lists for the colder months: how much flour for bread, how to cook it on a log burner or open fire, how much water for cooking, how many candles until Christmas. I wrote Christmas and then crossed it out. Winter is coming. The blackberries are the last sweetness. The stream will freeze. The lane will be passable again, hard ground, no mud to trap the tyres. And I keep thinking about the smoke, about the person upstream, about whether they know we're here, about whether they're waiting for dark. I have a kitchen knife. I have a fire extinguisher from the van. I have 8 children who trust me and 1 cat who doesn't care. I have a gate that locks and a wall that is 6 feet high. I am so tired. Tonight, just before sunset, someone called from the other side of the lane. Not loudly, just once. Hello? The children were in the garden. I put a finger to my lips and watched them freeze. The voice came again. Is anyone there? I didn't answer. After a while, the person walked away. I heard footsteps on the road, slow and careful. Then nothing. I waited until the light had gone before I let the children back inside. I told them it was a bird. They believed me. 8 present. I don't know how long I can keep lying. 15th of September. I got bitten. I don't know how to write it. I've been sitting here for an hour with the pen shaking and the candle burning low. I keep starting sentences and not finishing them because the words make it real, and I don't want it to be real. It was the water. The butts were nearly empty and I needed to fill the jerry cans. I went alone because I couldn't risk the children. The stream is too far and too open and too everything. I was crouched at the bank with my hands in the cold water when I heard him. A man, standing in the shallows upstream. I don't know how long he'd been watching. I don't know if he was alive when I arrived, or if he followed me, or if he heard the children yesterday and had been waiting. He looked normal. That's what I keep thinking. He looked like a man in hiking boots and a waxed jacket, the kind you see in the pub on Sundays. He smiled when he saw me and raised his hand. I almost smiled back, almost called out, almost said hello. Then he moved the way they do, jerky and strange, and so very far from human. He was running, splashing through the stream, faster than they usually move. I had the jerry can in my hands and swung it, but he was on me before I could lift it again. His mouth closed around my forearm. His teeth went through my sleeve and into my skin before I understood I was screaming. The sound frightened me more than the bite. I hit him with a stone, a smooth, round stone from the stream bed, heavy enough to hurt. I hit him until he stopped moving. Then I hit him again, and again, because I was scared, because my arm was bleeding, because I knew. The water carried a thin pink ribbon away from us. I sat beside the stream for a long time, holding my arm against my chest. The jerry cans were still empty. The man was still in the water. His face was turned towards the sky, and for a moment he looked peaceful. I wondered whether he had been somebody's teacher, somebody's father, somebody who had once stood in a kitchen and complained about the price of coffee. Then I got up and left him there. I know the rules. I've known them since the second day, since the radio said, "Do not attempt to reach the safe zones," in a voice that was crying. I know what happens now. I've seen it. My arm is hot. It burns and won't stop oozing blood. I cleaned it with boiled water and wrapped it in a bandage from the first aid box, but the cloth is already red through the middle. The bite marks are deep, 4 on one side, 3 on the other. I can feel the heat moving into my shoulder now, a line of fire running towards my heart. I know what comes next. I know what I become. I walked back to the cottage, carrying one half-filled jerry can. I don't know how I managed it. I kept my sleeve pulled down so the children wouldn't see. I smiled when they asked why I was late. I said the path had been muddy. I said the stream was lower than I expected. I said I had brought enough water for tea. 3 more lies. I am getting very good at this. The children asked why I was holding my arm. I told them I had caught it on a bramble. Jacob offered to kiss it better. I had to turn away from him. I let the cat out. Marmalade, fat and orange and trusting. I opened the back door and he walked into the dusk like he was going to his other home, the one where everything is fine. He paused on the step. For one terrible second, I thought he knew. Then he walked into the grass and disappeared beneath the hedge. He didn't look back. Cats don't. I don't know if that's cruelty or wisdom. I opened the chicken run. The hens rushed out in a noisy, confused bundle, pecking at the ground and clucking as if I had given them a treat. I scattered the last of their feed across the soil. They might find somewhere. They might keep laying for someone else. I left the door open. 15th of September. Late evening or perhaps early morning. The children are sleeping under the apple tree. Sleeping, that is the kind way to write it. I laid them out in order. Ava first, then Daniel, then Ethan, then Jacob, then Lily, then Noah, then Olivia, then Priya. In alphabetical order, the way we line up for assembly. They look peaceful. They look like they're dreaming. There's apple blossom on their clothes, even though it's September, even though the blossom fell months ago. I don't know if I put it there or if it fell, or if I'm already not remembering things properly. The glasses are still beside the back door. I should wash them. Don't judge me. Please don't judge me. I know what this looks like. I know what I've become. I know that I'm writing this for someone to find, for someone to read, for someone to understand that I did this because the alternative was worse, because I was already bitten, because I could feel it in my blood, because in 2 hours, or 4 hours, or 6 hours, I would have opened my eyes and I would have been hungry and they would have been... Don't judge me. I kept them safe. I kept them safe from everything. From me. I'm going to walk out into the lane now. The sky is the colour of the blackberry jam we made, the colour of their stained fingers, the colour of everything we survived together. I'm going to walk until I can't walk anymore. I'm going to walk. I don't know what comes next. I was their teacher. I was Mrs. Hartley. I was someone who bought oats in bulk and made jam and believed that walls could keep things out. 8 present. None present. The sun is coming up and I can feel something. Something starting inside me. Something dangerous. Please forgive me.
Thank you for listening. This testimony has been added to the History of the Zombie War archives. New accounts are released twice monthly, from the very first days to the more memorable days of the war, from wherever the outbreak found ordinary people. Subscribe to hear where it started, to hear how it spread, to hear how someone else survived. The archives are still growing. Every testimony we recover is a light against the dark, a voice that says, I was here, I saw, I am still here. We have survived.